certainly not through their education, then that sex has natural ramifications, obviously, overpopulation. It's an obvious recipe for disaster. It's a combo effect that can be solved with an RBE. Ergo, there is no need to do anything about populations. They will naturally balance once we get humanity back into balance. Okay, question 9. Technology has torn us apart, not brought us together. What the Venus Project proposes will only separate humanity even further, and hence give birth to even more inhumanity. Okay, the formality of people treating each other differently is purely a matter of psychology, and psychology, as human history has shown, has always been changeable. While it is true that a person can act far differently when communicating online than they would in person, it is not the technology itself that is causing the behaviour to come about. It is the technology that is facilitating this communication in the first place. However, to blame a computer for allowing a person to act like a troll over the internet really is just like blaming a wall that is enabling a child to insult their parent on the other side of it with rude gestures. In an RBE, the interest is to interact with people as much as possible. For social interaction is an enriching experience as well as an educational one. We as human beings are social animals, not solitary. And extensive periods of solitude has been proven to have negative psychological and even physical results. For one thing, a person in an RBE, a person in, say, the part of the world that is now known as England, will not be held back by the consideration of money when wanting to converse with another person in the part of the world that we know now as America, because you can jump on a maglev and be there in a couple of hours. The freedom to go wherever you want, whenever you want, will be so vast that it is likely that internet communication will be greatly reduced, because people will not have to pay to travel anymore. Therefore, and transportation will be so easy. Therefore, we will travel a hell of a lot more and actually see people more. Why sit on your computer and communicate when you can actually chat in person? Okay, question 10. The Venus Project is a utopia. Okay, I can understand the compulsion to throw out this label. Unfortunately, it is yet another one of these charged words, though not in the same way as cult is thrown around. It's more of a ridicule or invalidation tactic, along the same lines as dreamer, for example. Here's why TVP is not a utopia. First of all, let's actually define utopia. It refers to a fixed end state of perfection. Now, an RBE is not perfect. It is just a hell of a lot better than what we have today. The idea of reaching perfection is an impossibility. We can never achieve perfection, since we live in an emergent universe with everything in constant transition, meaning that everything is constantly changing, from the seasons of the year to human thoughts and understandings. There can never be any fixed states of being, but rather a continual journey of optimization. For this reason, there are no utopias. There is no such thing. We wish to strive for the best we can do at that point in time. You know what I think is utopian? Having a system based on infinite growth on a finite planet. That is utopian, and that is impossible. Question 11. Does TZM mean going back to living like cavemen and living without houses, cars, electricity, etc.? Okay, first of all, this is not about going back at all. It is not about reverting back to any previous methods or, any good old days. What do people mean when they say good old days? When I look back in history, all I see is barbarism and suffering. There's no good old days. There's no such thing. It's romanticism at its worst, really. For one thing, there really is no such thing as that, okay? We are advocating the move forward, not backward. For one thing I've noticed about certain reactions to a resource-based economy is that an assumption that somehow we would be going back, as if it were a methodology that existed in the past. This is to do with the lock in the frame of reference that people experience. People generally can only see something within the range of things they've already seen to be used and accepted. This occurs since we have a rejectful mentality towards anything new, i.e. communism. So when someone suggests something new, people cannot think outside of their frame of reference and hence think back to a system that has existed prior and assume that the proposal is based within one of the prior established systems, i.e. again, communism. People see a lot of buzzwords coming in. Oh no, it must be, it must be communism, because I don't know about anything else. I don't know about anything that has never existed, and that's understandable. We advocate the implementation of a high technology yet high nature civilization. A resource-based economy is not close to anything that has ever been put into practice before. It is far from what we know today as Neanderthal times, because we utilize advanced technology and machine automation to create an abundance for all, in addition to the fact that the dominant value system is aligned with the emergent and symbiotic aspects of natural law. Okay, last question. Question 12. A resource-based economy will never work. I can understand you saying this, since your frame of reference involves the economic system that we already have, which, by the way, cannot be controlled. Our current economic model is based exclusively on perpetual growth and exists on a finite world. There is no mathematical model that can control or regulate that into comfortable variables. It's just not possible. I suppose to some that an RBE seems mathematically unsound. Well, you know what isn't mathematically sound? Having an economic system that requires infinite growth on a finite planet. That is obviously unsustainable and very, very mathematically unsound. The problem and also the reason that the movement is needed is because we face huge barriers to this understanding in the form of materialism, religion, money, and politics. These barriers serve to separate humanity and keep it stagnant so that the existing structure can be maintained. The eventuality is, though, that we are heading towards self-destruction as we plummet down the opposite side of the peak oil bell curve. I'm sorry to, sound like a doomsday theorist, but that is true. And, there are shark-infested waters at the bottom of that slope. Okay? Our economy is like a runaway train. I'm not referring to the Soul Asylum song. I mean that in part as in the old element of fiction of a steam locomotive that is running out of control and perpetually speeding up. There is no stopping it, there is no slowing it down. It is constantly speeding up, and the only thing that can be predicted about it is that it will eventually derail itself. Now, I'm aware that the runaway train analogy is banded about, a bit in certain walks, so I'll extend the analogy so it better explains our current situation. Now, before I go into this analogy further, I must mention that this train is not a runaway train by fault or error. It is a runaway train by design. It is actually intended to become a runaway train. This is the formality of perpetual growth on a finite planet. The consideration of control is a completely moot point, since the design is to perpetually grow. Now, this train has a certain speed and a certain amount of carriages. And I'm going to compare the speed of the train to the rate of what we know as economic growth. The carriages as the populace and classes that the economy supports, and the coal as that's used in the engine room as the resources of the planet. As the train gains momentum, it in turn tugs the carriages along and consumes the coal that powers it. But as you can imagine, perpetual growth will mean a continual acceleration of the train, and hence a continual accelerated use of the coal. This is understandable considering that perpetual growth translates as the speed being the prime concern. Keep this in mind. And what does this mean for the carriages? Of course, it means that they need to be decoupled. You cannot have a train going as fast as possible with many carriages in tow. They become a dead weight. This is exactly what is happening to our economy. Carriages are being decoupled naturally as the train speeds up, because their connection to the train's process has become more and more strained, as they cannot keep up with the rate of acceleration that is expected, like a car being towed by an unstable tow rope. So obviously the lower classes are going to be the first to go. Economically, they're the weakest link. As the process of acceleration and coal depletion continues, we notice that the sheer speed of the train becomes evident as the prime concern, and the carriages as secondary, if that. What matters for our current paradigm is the continual cyclical consumption, and we cannot be satisfied, hence why we keep pushing faster. Now, taking into consideration that we only have a set quantity of coal on board, what is going to happen when it runs out? Another question we should be asking ourselves is, at what point does the speed of the train become too much for the integrity of the train to handle, and thus slips off the rails and crashes completely? This is the reality of what we are facing economically, and we need to shift our values in order to see this change come to fruition, and that is why the Zeitgeist Movement and the Venus Project exists. To act as a parallel train of thought, to conjoin a pun and an analogy together, to as safely as possible transfer us onto a more stable locomotive system before the current course becomes too volatile to maintain. Now you tell me, will our current system work? Is our current system at all sustainable? I certainly think not. So the blanket statement that the Venus Project will never work is treating our suppositions with the exact level of unthinking mentality that we treat our current system with. And with that kind of outlook on the matter, you will be absolutely correct. If we think that it won't happen, then it certainly won't. However, if we do think it will happen, then hey, then we got some options, don't we? It's a case of mindset. It's all dependent on what we do. And like Jacques says, if we do nothing, I guarantee you that nothing will happen. Right, well, I'm afraid that's all I've got time for this time. I will be signing off now. Next time I will be, off the top of my head, I can't think of any themed shows that I'll be doing, so next time I'll be answering just random miscellaneous questions. But I thank you very much for tuning in, or clicking in, should I say. Tuning in is quite an outdated notion at the moment, don't you think? But anyway, you guys take care of yourselves, have fun, and I will talk to you all soon. Okay, bye bye.